Canada's community e-talk show with our new series, Youth and Mental Health. Let's do a quick recap of last week's episode, recognizing the warning signs of mental health issues. Dr. Sujoy shared some signs and symptoms for viewers at home to be aware of regarding their own or a loved one's mental health. He also talked about ways families can support those experiencing mental health challenges and how to respond if someone they know has been voicing out suicidal thoughts. If you haven't watched that episode yet, be sure to check it out with the link in our description below. This week for episode 3, Dr. Sujoy and Anu will be going over strategies and techniques for our topic, coping with stress in a healthy way. I'm going to pass it off to Jatin in our news corner to give you some of the recent updates.
Hello everyone, this is Jatin and let's dive into the news section this week. The Northern Ontario School Board has created summer drop-in wellness hubs to improve mental health in the youth. These are places where students can safely connect with each other in person and learn tips about coping with anxiety, stress and depression. Sue Lessig, mental health lead at the school board, says they were concerned about the students' well-being since they were out of the classroom for a good portion of the pandemic. Some teens had a difficult time with online learning and may have had a hard time not socializing with their peers for so long. Moving on, a recent study by University of Toronto has stated that some stress management tools could pose physical health risks during COVID-19. People often employ the coping strategy to lower fear and worry by reinterpreting the situation at hand. Angela Smith, the lead author of the study, says, in many circumstances, reappraisal is a valuable tool to help with the mental health. However, the consequences of using it in the face of a pandemic may result in downplaying the vital importance of taking the necessary health precautions. Now, talking about stress, you may wonder how to manage it. Well, diaphragmatic breathing is the simplest anxiety management skill and one of the most effective for quick relief of symptoms. Also called belly breathing, it is very different from chest breathing because it signals the brain and body to relax. Research has provided evidence that this technique is effective in reducing the levels of perceived stress as it activates the vagus nerve, which in turn lowers the levels of cortisol and adrenaline, leading to a relaxation response. If you want to learn this breathing technique or want to know more about any of these news, in this section, head over to our social media feeds and you will find links to all these articles. Now let's head into the unscripted talk segment with Anu and our special guest of the week. Thank you.
Hello everyone and welcome to the We Serve Canada Community e-talk. Thank you, Jatin. That was a great overview of the current news with reference to our topic of the week. So as you know, we're talking about stress. Stress is really a very, very big factor that affects many people's overall mental health and their wellness. And it's actually quite a normal response to a situational pressure or maybe demands for a certain job or something like that. And everyone experiences stress. However, the intensity and the frequency and maybe even the duration of how long the stress lasts is different for each of the individual. I personally feel that a small amount of dose of stress can help people feel more motivated to meet their deadlines, prepare for presentations, maybe arrive in time for the important meetings and things like that. However, if you have a long-term chronic stress, that obviously is going to be harmful. And when stress becomes overwhelming and prolonged, then the risks of mental health problems and the medical problems obviously arise with that. So this has naturally become a concern because it prevents individuals, especially the youth, from continuing their daily routines. I was reading in an American Psychological Association that teens were reported to have the worst mental health issues and higher level of anxiety and depression as compared to other people in the other age groups. In fact, more teens than adults, they worry about their social issues, maybe their work, maybe their money, health, and other age related things that they might be facing, which could be bullying or maybe even peer conflict, gender identity, and even sexual orientation. So, the key thing to note over here is that youth are unlikely to reach out for help, as feeling stress is it's easily brushed off as being a normal part of life, and that they should deal with it on their own and combat with it. So, in reality, everyone experiences stress in a different way, and some people just need extra help and support to get through it, which is absolutely fine. We Serve Canada encourages everyone to take a step back from their busy, fast paced lives to evaluate our well being and determine if our stress levels are really healthy and manageable. So, coping up with stress can be a challenge, which is why I am so glad that we have created this platform to address this issue in our community e-talk. So let's welcome again Dr. Sujoy Ray, who is a psychiatrist, clinician. He's a medical researcher, as we had said, and a teacher as well. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Sujoy Ray and go over some coping strategies that we can maybe use in our day-to-day lives. So I think I'll start with the first question, Dr. Sujoy Ray. That could you really explain what is stress and what causes stress?
Hi, so thank you once again for having me here, Anuji and the others from We Serve Canada, Pratham, Tracy, and everyone else. So, to answer that question, stress is actually a term that was coined earlier on to understand the effects of change on the human body. So, what happens is if you look at from an evolutionary point of view, when early man was there hunting and when civilization was not there at that point of time, whenever early man faced a sort of a danger, whether it is a wild animal or any other threat, there used to be a normal reaction in the body. Even now we have that. So we have some hormones which which go up, sorry, and the person becomes very active and very alert, and that kind of a state comes in. So that is what is a response of a body to any sort of a threat which is perceived. And in primitive times, threat used to be wild animals or those kinds of dangers. Now, as we have evolved, we don't have those kinds of threats really in our lives because we live in civilization and we're not exposed to those kinds of dangers. But you have different kinds of issues. So it could be exam, it could be a job interview, it could be anything. So the body also reacts in the same way. You have your some chemicals in your body go up, some changes in the chemical levels which causes some physical changes, whether it is an increased heartbeat, whether it is sweating, whether it is an increased energy. That is the thing. Now, what used to happen in earlier times is that when what I was talking about early man and that time, that whatever extra sort of awakenedness or that extra tension in the body was there, that used to be dissipated by a physical action. When early man would face a wild animal, he would fight or run or whatever it is. Fight or flight is what we call that. Now we don't really have that kind of physical activity in our lives. We don't, when there is an exam or when there is a job interview or when there is any other source of stress, this is not something which you can run from or which you can physically fight, isn't it? So we are not able to dissipate that energy through any physical means. So that tension has to go. If it is not dissipated, it has to go somewhere, and it comes into our body in the form of stress. So that's why we have a emotional reaction. We feel anxious, we feel keyed up, we might feel disturbances in sleep. So basic evolution of the stress is a very normal thing. It's a normal reaction. It's not something which you choose to be. People don't take stress or get stressed. It's a normal thing. Only thing is that in modern times it has become not only a physical but also a mental and emotional issue. So that is what the origin of any stress is.
No, you've explained it so beautifully, and putting it into the perspective of fight and flight. We've heard this terminology quite a bit before. and but it's really well explained in terms of how the physical aspect also translates into the emotional and mental piece of it, which is what we are going to talk about. So, although stress is useful in specific situations and it really motivates us, um, we obviously know when it goes out of hand and turns into chronic stress and it really starts impacting our lives negatively. So, this is rather difficult and complex thing to be able to determine. So I'm hoping that Dr. Sujoy, you can help our viewers at home to understand a bit more about the dangers of unhealthy stress. So could you tell us maybe some of the signs or symptoms of chronic stress and how it can actually affect a person's mental health?
So, as I was saying earlier, so you have these physical manifestations where you are anxious, you're keyed up, you're unable to relax. So that will get, as you said, in a chronic or a prolonged stress, that will just go on for a longer period of time. So if you are keyed up, you'll not be able to, say, stay at one place. You always feel like moving around, or sleep difficulties. You cannot, how should I say, you cannot loosen up, or you cannot relax yourself before going to sleep. um, if you are stressful, then you cannot really enjoy, if you're stressed, you cannot really enjoy anything, whether you have a meal or whatever it is, you cannot enjoy it. Mostly, people tend to finish it off somehow, even though it is something meant to be enjoyed. They just want to finish it off because they're preoccupied with the thoughts. And then on a mental level, you cannot concentrate on anything because the source of the stress, whether it is the job or exam or any other financial issue, it is all going on your mind. So if that is a continuous tape like thing playing in your mind, then you can't concentrate on anything else. Emotional level, you tend to get frustrated, not knowing what to do, so that can lead to anger, getting very jumpy and irritable and angry at small things. On the other hand, it can lead to sadness as well, and that sadness can sometimes spiral into proper, full-fledged depression. So you lose interest in things which you like to do, your hobbies, and finally, ultimately, you must have heard, unfortunate outcome is, suicidal ideas and ideas of hurting you. When you try to escape, if there is no escape, it looks like an escape route, suicide or taking your own life. That's obviously the most, worst kind of outcome. Outcome. So that these are some of the things which are there.
Everyone experiences stress throughout their lives, even if they are young children. However, some people, like you said, they might be able to overcome it, but the others, they might not be able to overcome it in their mind and body. So, who do you think is the most vulnerable demographics or population to stress? And possibly, if you could even tell us what is the reason why that particular demographic is vulnerable.
So I would say that people who have any sort of physical illness. Now it can be from any demographic. Somebody already has a physical illness, or it could be something like ongoing, like a hypertension, blood pressure, or sugars, diabetes, things like that. Or let's say a person has an acute something which is a sudden illness, a fractured leg, injury, or something like that. So anybody who has a physical problem will have it, is already has a pre-existing physical problem, will have difficulty in adjusting with the stress. So that would be that could be any person. Otherwise, if you say, then elderly people could be more prone to stress. Then maybe there are certain professions. It depends on every profession is stressful. I'm not saying that one is more stressful than others. Everybody has their own stresses, but people who would see things like deaths, or medical professionals, fire safety professionals, police, because these are people who see, how should I say, death, destruction, or even if they, hopefully they don't see death, even that, even they still see people who are struggling. They see people who are at very dangerous, vulnerable stages in their life. So certain professions are vulnerable. Then certain stages of life. If you are transiting to a new job, transiting to a new place, transiting from college to job or school, high school to college, so changes. Even it could be a positive change like getting a new job. It's a positive thing, but still it's a source of stress. Or it could be a negative change, divorce, separation, death of a family member. Anybody who has faced any such life events, positive and negative both, is prone to stress.
Is prone to, yeah. That's for sure. So, like rightly said, that stress is something that is inevitable, and we cannot really escape it because it's a natural response to our bodies. But it is important to be knowledgeable and have the appropriate resources to help deal with it, as effectively as possible, so that it does not really impact us negatively. So could you describe to the viewers how they can cope up with stress? What are some of the strategies that you would recommend for people to use to cope up with stress?
So I think the most important thing is to not to do it alone, to take support, and this is where society, family, these people will come in. Generally, if you have a stressful situation, you have a change, so you should anticipate this, that this is, there are issues, this could happen, and you should in the beginning itself take as much support as you can, so that if you're transiting from high school to college, so there will be a lot of stresses. How will I, let's say if you're going to a hostel or away from the family, so the family should prepare, how will he stay, what will be the finances, those kinds of things. Or when you're moving to another country, you have your visa and accommodation and those things. So you should make preparations. When you, as much as you can anticipate and prepare beforehand, the stress will reduce. Apart from that, and again, so for that you need everyone's support. You cannot do it all alone.
Right.
And everybody, even if the person starts to get stressed about it, people should not be judgmental. As I was saying, you can't avoid stress, isn't it? You cannot avoid stress, so you have to, you should not be judgmental on the person. You should understand that this is a time when he or she needs support. Ultimately, if you find yourself getting stressed due to any changes you have, it is always best to sort of reorganize yourself. As I was saying earlier about physical health, so make sure you eat well, sleep well, get some good exercise, try to regularize your routine. See, again, when you talk about change from school to college, college to job, or place to place, there is a change in routine. You will be forced to get into a change in routine because it will be different. But as long as you try to adjust it and regularize it, if it becomes predictable, again, stress is about change. So once you settle into predictability and a timetable and routine, it will be easier. I'm not saying the stress will immediately go away, but it will be easier. And always talk to people, not only family, but your educational, your teachers, your job employer, any other authorities you have. Reach out for help. You have so many hotlines and so many phone lines. I'm sure you'd be aware of quite a few before things get out of hand. And anyhow, the best thing is that if things are really out of hand and you're not able to cope up, it's the best thing to do, or the only thing to do, is immediately seek help from a health professional, whether it is psychologist, psychiatrist, or even a general physician who can later on direct you to a psychiatrist. So if you feel that the other measures are not working, even after adjusting your routines and all adequate help, then it may be that you have a mental illness and there's nothing to feel ashamed about it. So you should seek help from the from the relevant medical professionals.
No, Dr. Sujoy, I think the best tip that I got from this conversation is that we should prepare in advance as much as possible, at least all the physical and the tangible parts of things which are possible. Obviously, things which are not in our control are the ones that we leave it. So basically, don't try and get the stress because of some of the things that you could have done earlier physically and you did not do, and the stress is coming from that. So I think that is a really very, very simple tip for anyone to just take some time to really see where they are what stage of life they are or what they are going through, and what is that they can prepare and save themselves from unnecessary stress. So this actually wraps up this week's episode. Thank you, Dr. Sujoy, for giving such a great in-depth look at stress and sharing obviously your recommendations on how to better cope for our viewers, for our audience. And everyone, stay tuned for our next episode, which is on depression. And we really appreciate all the support that you have given us for our new series. Please continue to like and support and share the spread. And thank you again so much, Dr. Sujoy, for being part of our mental health series. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And that wraps up this week's episode. Thank you to Dr. Sujoy again for giving a more in-depth look into stress and sharing your suggestions to better cope with it with our viewers at home. Stay tuned, everyone, for next week's episode, Dissecting Depression. We appreciate all the support you have given towards our new series. Please continue to like, comment, and share to spread the love. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell button to be updated the moment our next episode is released. Be sure to follow us on our social media handles at VServe Canada. See y'all next week. Bye!